Next plant on our list, also in the Fabaceae family, the legume family, is we're going to call it Pisum. You can pronounce it any way you like, but I'm going to call it Pisum sativum. Okay, otherwise known as peas. So these are just standard garden peas. Let's click to the next image, and I'll kind of give a bit of a spiel about peas, Pisum, on that slide. As a plant taxonomist, I really enjoy, not that I'm as a trained taxonomist, I'm not a practicing taxonomist, but as a trained taxonomist, I enjoy the phyllotaxy and structure of Pisum foliage. Kind of, you wonder what happened first, right? We're legumes, which typically have compound leaves. Did they did legumes originally have compound leaves and then evolved to have simple leaves, or did they have simple leaves and then they evolved to have compound leaves? And if there are steps in between, is Pisum one of them? These leaves, it kind of looks like it's one leaf, but it has two main ribs, so possibly it's two leaves. Anyway, that's a great way to ID Pisum, is the foliage, the leaf structure. The other thing you'll notice in the image on the right is the tendrils. So often, where I think just about all varieties of Pisum have tendrils which help it climb. And you can see if you look back at the image on the left, these both are images of plants that we grew in the greenhouse, by the way. But you can see the little tendrils that are kind of twirling around stuff and grabbing onto things. I grow these in rows just with binder twine or baler twine, sorry, um, as stuff for them to climb on. And as they get taller, I put another strand of baler twine between bamboo stakes. It's cost effective, or just put it up and then take it down. It's pretty easy, but it allows the peas to grow up, and I find it produces a better crop. And also, the plants tend to grow better off the ground than on the ground. They're kind of sprawling everywhere. Interesting is the pea shoots on the left are quite edible, and peas can be grown just as a microgreen. If you guys have been fooling around with microgreens, which I hope you all have been, in the greenhouse, except Omar, of course. Just kidding. But anyway, the shoots make a quite a fantastic addition to a salad, and as a microgreen. As I mentioned before, with the beans, peas affix quite a bit of nitrogen, and which is a cool process if you ever look it up, how legumes affix nitrogen. There's three groups of legumes or Fabaceae, and they don't all affix nitrogen, but this group do, and they do it quite well, especially peas. Um, so, Pisum sativum meaning cultivated, have a few different varieties. You need to know this one, garden pea, but in the next few slides, I'll give you some varieties that could be great bonuses. Okay, Pisum sativum variety saccharatum, otherwise known as snow peas or mange tout. It's actually mange tout. It's a French word meaning eat everything, and it's normal Pisum sativum. The pod has strands in it. It's kind of you can eat it, and then it will almost turn into like chewing bubble gum. It's quite fibrous. But these varieties, or this variety here, includes this is snow peas, but we also do sugar snap and snow peas. All three of them have an edible pod, so you can eat the whole thing. Hence, mange tout, unlike Pisum sativum. So great bonus. These snow peas, sugar snap, and let's just call it snow peas would make a great bonus. Okay, you can see my daughter's just to give that Mackenzie's kind of standing there. She's picking the row, and you know that's all she got out of a whole row of beans. I won't ask her where the rest of the peas went, but anyway, sorry, row of peas. Um, anyway, come back to it. I kind of have a tendency of wandering. Just to give you a sense of scale for the plant and the pot, the fruit itself is why I've included that image there. A great plant. So peas in general are very early. We kind of get them in the ground beginning of May if we can work it. Even if it's too cold to plant, we'll still put peas in. I have put them in too early and nothing happened, so they all rotted. Um, just because I was kind of jumping a little too early. This year, it's Good Friday today, about 5:30 in the morning, and there's snow on the ground, so may not be putting peas in early this year. Another 20 days, but who knows? Lots can happen in the big city of Strathroy. Okay, so let's move on to our next plant. The the most economically important plant on our list, which would make a great question, by the way, if anybody had an upcoming test, would be Zea mays. And Zea mays is obviously corn in the Poaceae family, the most economic important plant family to humans. Of course, if it's economic, it has to be humans. Never mind. Anyway, Zea mays corn is grown for a variety of reasons. This is sweet corn that we have growing in our garden, but you'll see in most fields, especially on your way out to cuddies, are rows and rows of Zea mays for cattle. Cattle feed. It's not sweet corn; it's cattle corn, and it's also used to produce um, corn syrup, right, which is the main ingredient in just about everything. We don't use sweet corn for corn syrup as regular corn or field corn will produce a bit more and just as well. Anyway, this is um, one image a couple of years ago of Zea mays. Let's move on to our next slide, and we can see kind of the cob and talk a little bit about producing corn. So, few things with Zea mays. One is it self-pollinates. So you've seen the tassels at the top, which is the male part of the plant, the male flower, produces the pollen, which falls down into the um, cob, or the female part of the flower. Each strand, if you will, each hair on the cob is linked to a kernel, and that's how the pollen gets in and fertilizes the kernel. If there isn't pollen, there will not be a kernel. So when you can almost smell it sometimes when the corn is in, well, actually you can smell it. Apparently, I don't smell so well, but just about anybody that's kind of been out to the farm said, "Wow, the corn is in tassel," and we used to do it by hand and go out and knock the corn and knock the pollen on a still night, and the pollen would fall down and pollinate the female flower or the cob, which is kind of what we eat. The middle image is maybe one of the better cobs I've ever produced. It's kind of full from tip from the beginning to the end. It's got cobs all the way around. many years it's been like it's a great long cob, but only half of it has kernels. Yeah, that happens. Um, so the whole pollination topic is one of the reasons why we grow ZMAs or corn in rows, but in blocks. Like it's a good idea not to just have one single row of corn out in the middle of your garden, but plant it in blocks mainly for pollination. Okay, um, generally try to plant blocks at the same time. So if you say you're going to do like 6 rows of corn, do 3 at one time, fairly close together, and then do the next 3 if you want to stagger the planting so it's not already at once. We harvest the corn, cut it off with electric knives, and then freeze it. So we generally want a lot of corn ready at one time. Kids love corn, and we eat it, 3 times a week out of the garden, and so we grow quite a bit of it, and we want it ready all at once for the most part. Um, I'll put a slide next to kind of show some staggered planting, but you'll see what I mean. Um, let's move forward. So this is our garden last year. We kind of moved it around a little bit and took up a bit more space. You can see the actual vegetable garden where kind of where everybody's standing. To the right of them is 50 by 100, and then to the left of them is 50 by 100, and that's what we did in corn. And we did 3 rows of sweet corn at a time, or actually no, we did 9 rows in total. Um, 6 we planted at the same time, and then 3 came later. And that was, kind of to extend the season. There's also late and early varieties of ZMAs, so you can plant early variety at the same time as a late variety and plant all of it, and it will naturally space itself out. And there's kind of like a 65 day, 80 day, or 95 day as a late variety. Corn is one of these plants that you want to pay attention to heat units. Also, ZMAs are really heavy feeders. They suck up the nitrogen. So nice idea to plant corn after peas have been in the ground, right? Plant your peas in one area 1 year. Next year, plant your ZMAs, and it will cut down a little bit on your fertilizer cost because in corn is such a heavy feeder. You're pumping it with nitrogen. Usually, when we plant corn, you can see like in the field after the vegetable garden, that's all cattle corn, and it's planted with ammonium nitrate, like 50 00, and ammonia hydrous, and it's knifed into the ground as a gas at after planting, and just to give the corn a good shot of nitrogen um, right away, because it's such a heavy feeder. And that's about all I have to say. Tons of pests and diseases for ZMAs, including raccoons, but that's just part of the fun of gardening, I guess.